Some people love a thunderstorm. Others get a little bit nervous when those clouds start rolling in. Today, we're actually going to talk about risk tolerance through the lens of weather, right? How do you prepare for it? Why it's okay to have different reactions? What you can do to make sure that you're prepared for whatever the storm brings you. We'll talk about all that coming up next. Welcome in. This is All Things Retirement. I am Ben George. He is Anthony Aulffo at the Cardinal Wealth Group, a certified financial planner. And we're continuing these conversations about financial planning, retirement planning, again, trying to be educational. So if that's something that you're interested in, please subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us, go over to YouTube as well. Check us out there. But Anthony, I know you guys have dealt with some weather already. I know you're ready for it to warm up a little bit, but it's all about preparing for what's coming, right?
Yes, I'm prepared for the spring and looking forward for it, but who knows when it'll be here. So we thought we were done, and then next thing you know, we got 12 more inches. So hopefully this will be the last one.
Yeah, well, this will be a fun conversation because it'll kind of give you some perspective, make you maybe rethink risk tolerance a little bit differently, and make you maybe be a little more comfortable with where you stand with risk. Because, as we kind of start this off, the forecast, you look at the forecast and you see what it's supposed to be, but that doesn't mean that's what the weather's going to be, right? You can't just rely on the forecast to prepare for what's coming.
That's right. Yeah. Most of our clients share similarities, age, income, net worth, but they differ on risk, and preparing for that risk is different for each client because it's kind of emotional, and emotion's kind of one of those things that are hard to measure. Doesn't necessarily fit into just one category. It's very gray and it can change. So most people are taking these questionnaires, take 10 multiple choice questions, and you're a moderately aggressive investor, which I don't really know. Sometimes it's hard to quantify what that is, or they'll call it a day. It's not really planning at the end of the day, though.
I think it's interesting too, because, what you see on paper, right? Oh, it's going to be 45 and rainy. Well, when you get into it, it might be a little bit colder than you expected, or, hey, you might not quite want to deal with this much water or rain or whatever. It's that same way with the market, right? It might look okay on paper. You might say, oh, yeah, I can handle that fine. But once you're in it, you might react differently.
Absolutely. So a lot of times we're meeting people that we have just come in contact with. We don't have a 20-year relationship where we know them prior. So we really have to start to peel back layers and to really try to understand what they can tolerate when markets are good and bad. But I mean, it's really difficult to really understand. So we really want to start to say, do you guys check your accounts frequently? Do you stay disciplined? Do you react to the news? Do you understand how markets work, especially from a long-term perspective? So it's just difficult to really know exactly where somebody is initially. And, if we get answers that, we do check the news, we are kind of nervous, that starts to tell us a little bit more about things. If we have other folks that just say, yeah, we see it goes down, it'll come back. I know that they maybe are thinking about it a little bit differently than the person that's checking it on a 20-minute basis. So we just kind of want to get that foundation and take some notes on that type of stuff early on, and then we'll kind of go through our 3 or 4 step process in terms of understanding where maybe they should fit in terms of a risk tolerance standpoint. But it is an evolving process for sure.
Yeah, I know when you have calm skies and when the weather's good, when it's 75 and sunny, we can all enjoy that, right? Everyone feels confident when things are calm. It's what happens when that weather shifts, right? And how do you react to that emotionally? What signs tell you, maybe a client, when they tell you, hey, this is my risk tolerance, this is what I think, but it may not match their real world behavior? What are some signs where you might see that kind of going off in different directions?
Yeah, what we'll do after we kind of get through some of the open-ended questions or scenario-based questions that we kind of just mentioned, we'll kind of go into it from a financial planning perspective, right? We'll get a sense of how stable is their income, some of the basic stuff, their time horizon, their prior experiences. So we'll break it down into like three different kind of categories. First, it's their ability to assume risk. So how much financial volatility can they withstand? And that's just looking at their paycheck, their income, are they're retired? How dependent are they on their portfolio? The second one would be their willingness to accept risk. So think of this more of from the emotional standpoint of them being able to handle a 20 or 30% drop in the market. So we have these softwares that show what that looks like on a, not just a percentage basis, but a dollar basis, because dollars really seem to hit home more than percentages. And when we show that to them of what, different times in the past have had and what that would be to your portfolio, you're going to get a natural reaction pretty quickly. Like, no, I couldn't stand that. Or others would say, I might find it difficult, but I know that it'll come back. And then kind of this third area, so we got ability and then willingness. And then the third one would be really your need from a financial planning standpoint. If you're retired and you need a certain amount of income, we kind of have to take a certain amount of risk to provide that type of income. And so sometimes these things all match up perfectly, but many times there's maybe some compromises there in terms of the difference between your ability to take risks, willingness, and need. And so that's really where the financial planning process starts to get really involved in terms of their forward investment strategy as it relates to risk.
Yeah, and part of that Cardinal success journey you guys have is that safety bucket, right? I think we've talked about that some on the show before, but do you want to touch on that a little bit more, because that is such an impactful tool?
Yeah, I would say that's kind of the fourth element, where we take it from a little bit higher in the sky, really break it down to dollars and cents. So the safety bucket is really what I think provides a stickiness for people to actually say, we are prepared for the future in terms of bad markets. We know it will happen again. What we really want to do is not sell things that are overall good investments that just are being beat up a little bit right now to the bad news. We want to let them recover. So what we'll typically do is we'll walk them through what we call our safety bucket. I didn't, think of this. We've seen other advisors have success with it. We instituted about 10 years ago. So it kind of goes like this. We know that typically 7 out of 10 times or 70% of the time, the market's going to be positive 1 year to the next. As we get to year 3, it's around 80% or more. And as we get to 5 years, it's over 90%. And in those bad times, it typically, even a market that's down 20, 25%, the average recovery time is less than 2 years to get back to even without putting new money in. But in the last 75 years of any period of time, the worst case scenario, it's taking 7 years to get back to even without putting any new dollars in. So what we do is we basically are doing a cash flow analysis of what is required from your investments over the next 7 years. So we'll get an idea of, do we need to fund emergencies for your house? So think of the typical 6-month emergency bucket to cover unexpected expenses. The second would be your taxes, for if you're retired, sometimes we have to provide money to make quarterly payments or for Roth conversions. And then we'll have like that once bucket, things like I want to travel twice a year and take vacation. That's not in my normal day-to-day budget. So we'll kind of add that up. And the fourth and biggest one is your living expense. So how much do we need to provide from an income on a monthly basis from the portfolio? And we'll take that number and we'll multiply it by 6 or 7 years. And that'll give us a total amount that we kind of want to have in our safety bucket, war chest, that we are putting it in this investment that's still earning money, but it's not going to be affected by the stock market. And when you go over this with our clients, this light bulb kind of goes on and say, we are prepared for this. We don't know when the bad markets are going to happen, but we know that if the markets are down, we want to let them recover. And this is where that safety bucket comes into play. And I think it's one of those things where it allows the math and the psychology to align a little bit better than a risk tolerance questionnaire. and it allows people to maybe just breathe and calm down a minute, that we're actually prepared for this this future event as to whenever it may happen.
Yeah, it's a good breakdown. Again, that's the reason why you want to have a good advisor on your team, right? That can make sure they're tailoring your plan to fit your needs, because again, everybody's going to approach the weather a little differently in terms of what they're going to wear, how they're going to dress. So you got to make sure you're doing the same with your plan. And that kind of takes us kind of the last point here, Anthony, right? Good planning is about staying the course, because look, we can't avoid the weather. That's never can be the goal. That's out of our control, right? It's all about knowing how we can handle it. So just like, when it rains, we don't just abandon life altogether, right? We figure out how to make adjustments. Same thing with the market, right? When it fluctuates, we got to make sure that we have a plan in place, that we continue on. We don't abandon what we've been doing so far. So let's kind of close it out with maybe if you have an example to share. I think it's always good to kind of point out, this process in real life, how it takes place, where you actually helped align that risk tolerance, to help someone stay invested when things got turbulent.
There is, I would say, if you said out of the 150 plus people households that we help, I can kind of circle the 10 or 15 names that I know are going to be kind of nervous when things start to get a little shaky. And it really goes back to these ongoing financial planning meetings that we have with our clients. So one of the things that we have is our one-page financial plan. It's like front and center for every single client. We update it every single meeting, and on there is their safety bucket, the calculation that we go through that talks about those four things on how we came up with the amount, which then is written down on their financial plan as the total amount of future expenses, and then how many years we've already had pre-funded it for them. And we'll hammer them and go over that with them so that they're crystal clear. And it really allows them to say, wow, that makes sense, that we've already prepared for it. Again, they're not doing this every day. So just having those 2 or 3 conversations throughout the year that reminds them of it is super helpful for them to stay the course, because we know that on the other side, the markets will ultimately cure and be fine, but we just have to constantly really stay on top and explain how we are already prepared for it. So maybe not a specific client situation, but it's literally, we might have this conversation 20 plus times a year with our clients, just to remind them of how prepared that they actually are, because we are nervous about these things, and I get it, and it's our job just to show, hey, we are prepared for it. Even if we make investment changes to equities and stuff like that, sometimes if everything's down, there's not as much. It's just let them recover is the best course of action. We are fully diversified, but sometimes systematically the market does come back. So that safety bucket is like, hey, we've already prepared for it. It'll come back.
Yeah, look, the weather's changing every day, right? This kind of environment we live in, there's a lot of volatility, right? And there's this conversation is more important than ever. So again, you want to make sure you're working with someone that you can trust and help put that plan in place, that you are ready for whatever life brings you, because markets are going to always change. We know they're going to go up and down. That's part of it. We can't predict the storms, right? But you can be prepared to make sure your plan can handle whatever conditions come your way. And again, that's where that free assessment starts, right? Anthony, as you're talking about beginning that Cardinal success journey, what do you try to find out when you have those initial conversations with someone?
Yeah, well, when we have that initial conversation of the Cardinal success journey, it's one of the processes that we go through that, and we can leave a link for this one-page thing where we have those 4 questions in terms of their emergency, living expenses, taxes, and kind of wishes bucket, and how we come up to the math for their safety bucket. But in addition to that, plus all the other areas in terms of understanding how they view the market on a daily basis, or not at all, they leave the envelope in their top drawer, then that junk drawer, plus the actual financial plan that we go through in terms of understanding their ability to assume risk, willingness, and their need, and really just walk them through how we would do it for them. So it's just a part of our onboarding process, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, we hope this video helped you rethink risk and risk tolerance a little bit more, but we always encourage you to reach out with any further questions or to begin that planning process as well. CardinalWG.com, easiest place to start. You'll find everything there that you need. But we appreciate you watching and listening to All Things Retirement. Please subscribe if you haven't done that already. We'll talk to you again soon. Anthony, have a great week.
Yeah, great talking to you. Thanks, Ben.
Information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Please consult a qualified professional before taking any action.